Help me understand this because I'm still irritated by this. Based on that headline, if I skip breakfast and I eat lunch at noon, that means I eat my last meal at 7, and I'm at a 91% higher risk of cardiovascular death from that. This is Generation Health. We bring you the latest news, cutting-edge research, and time-tested best practices, helping you live a longer, healthier life. All right, so this next article, I brought it to your attention, and I'll just say I still think it's nonsense, and you can argue against it, but this irritates me. 8-hour time-restricted eating linked to a 91% higher risk of cardiovascular death. This is from the American Heart Association. They put this out. An analysis of over 20,000 U.S. adults found that people who limited their eating across less than 8 hours a day, a time-restricted eating plan, were more likely to die from cardiovascular disease compared to people who ate across a 12 to 16 hours per day, according to preliminary research presented at the American Heart Association's Epidemiology and Prevention, Lifestyle and Cardiometabolic Scientific Sessions of 2024 in Chicago. Now, I love Chicago, but I would not have been at that party. The meeting offers the latest science on population-based health and wellness and implications for lifestyle. I'm not going to read the rest of this. You guys can go into details. What are they saying? Because to me, this sounds like 8 hours a day. Like that's not really what most people consider time-restricted eating. For most people, it's 6 hours or less, or even less than that. Intermittent fasting. For those that aren't familiar with the terminology, intermittent fasting is what we're talking about here.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack in just what you said there. I think the key thing to revisit is that, yes, this was a presentation to kind of get people talking and thinking about additional things to begin to study over time. I think that it was just this irresponsible title that got so many people talking over the last 8 months or however long this has been out. Yeah. I think these, while technically correct, the relative risk increase was in fact 91%. It's too clickbaity for heart.org, Yes. For our YouTube channel, that's fine. We could do all the clickbait we want. But if you're the AHA, you have to be careful especially because this isn't like a fully fleshed out, finalized. You can see all the details of what they did. And also because it's just really not the most rigorously constructed paper, so to speak, to begin with. So I think, again, at the beginning, that's the biggest issue with it. It's a problematic title. It was more or less just a poster presentation, but without a doubt had the internet in shambles as we're a little late on it, but it's still worth. That's all right. Still worth discussing.
People who followed a pattern of eating all of their food across less than 8 hours per day had a 91% higher risk of death due to cardiovascular disease. The increased risk of cardiovascular death was also seen in people living with heart disease or cancer. No kidding. Among people with existing cardiovascular disease, an eating duration of no less than 8, but less than 10 hours per day was associated with a 66% higher risk of death and from heart disease or stroke. Time-restricted eating did not reduce the overall risk of death from any cause. An eating duration of more than 16 hours per day was associated with a lower risk of cancer mortality among people with cancer. Okay, break this down. Help me understand this because I'm still irritated by this. Because this, based on that headline, if I skip breakfast and I eat lunch at noon, that means I eat my last meal at 7, right? So then I'm done by 8 o'clock if I take a really long time to eat. That's 8 hours. And I'm at a 91% higher risk of cardiovascular death from that.
So there's a few different things to look at here. I'll just start with the way the study was set up. This is not a study of intermittent fasters. Right. That's what it appears to be, but it is not. It is basically surveys of 20,000 people. And they ask them, so they're going to evaluate these people over the median length is 8 years based on 2 days of reporting when they ate last. They didn't ask, are you an intermittent faster? They said
they're just looking back at data that already exists and seeing based on how they answered, determining what eating window they fit in. So like right off the bat, it's
so based on 2 days. Based on what you say, self-reported from 2 days, they're going to extrapolate an average median length study and slap on there that it's 8 years.
Okay.
24-hour recall is what I read.
24-hour recall in terms of reporting on those 2 days.
Recall questionnaire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking like, how long did you go without eating yesterday?
Yesterday?
That was, I mean, that's kind of the base.
Exactly.
That's sort of the rigor of the question being asked.
Peekaboo.
About to eat a cat.
Wow, I got to get refocused after that. This is why you have to watch, guys. You just missed all the comedy if you aren't watching. Okay, well, that seems that. So then, if that's the case, then what is the value in this at all? Because you were saying that there is still some good data in here.
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like there's much to take away, because it sort of goes counter to what the available research is at this point.
Yeah, knowing that it's not intermittent fasters. In other words, people who are making a conscious lifestyle decision in an attempt to make themselves healthier.
Yeah.
That helps a lot because...
Yeah, I mean, these are potentially people who are already fairly sick.
Yeah.
And literally can't get themselves to eat much throughout the day. And so they just fall into a given, what's the word? Spontaneous sort of eating pattern.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, what's really tough on this one is cancer. It can be very hard to eat. Your appetite. So they're drawing those conclusions. If you're not really eating much cancer, your mortality risk goes up. If you're eating throughout the day, mortality goes down. So that one specifically along those lines of patterns. But yeah, this could they're making it sound like it's a study about intermittent fasters when reality is most of these people are probably just breakfast skippers.
Exactly. I know we glossed over this at the outset, but time-restricted feeding, what they specifically mention, falls under the intermittent fasting umbrella. To a lot of people, it's just a matter of semantics. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. However you want to look at it is fine. But just so people know, there are many iterations, even like you said, of what it means to be fed and fasting in 6 hours versus 8 hours versus alternate day fasting versus multi-day fasting. I mean, there's so much then to let alone not really even be, none of these people potentially were using this, were actually employing this strategy.
Right.
So yes, not to.
Yeah, no, that's exactly because there's a ton of data, maybe not conclusive, but there's a ton of data that suggests that some form of time restricted eating is actually really beneficial for you in a number of different ways. So that's part of why this is such an inflammatory headline, is it flies in the face of everything else. And with a 91% higher risk.
And it's kind of like saying, well, yeah, you have all this short-term data that's good. Well, here's the long-term. And it's supposed to be like this sledgehammer, which, I mean, if that was the case,
sure,
glad putting it out there, but it's just, it's way too flawed to draw that conclusion yet.
Yeah. And this is all merely observational research, obviously. And then also, like I said, a lot of this observational research simply doesn't line up with the interventional data that we have. The authors in this paper show that there's a negative impact on cardiovascular disease mortality, whereas in the interventional research specifically, there's really never a major effect on actual markers of cardiovascular disease. So my point being, you would think if this was truly bad for those that have cardiovascular disease or who have cancer or make cardiovascular disease worse, or they die sooner from it, you would think that either something's happening with their blood cholesterol, you would think that they've had more heart attacks. There would be some biomarker or something measured interventionally that would start to reflect what's being seen here. And you just we don't see that. Now, what's also critical, I'm not sure if we caught that, but I'm also saying that the benefits of intermittent fasting, or whatever we want to call it, time restricted feeding, are also overstated.
Probably.
Usually. Yep. Especially in the context of, I have this diet that we're calorie matched for or energy matched for, and then I have that same diet, but it's restricted to 8 hours of feeding. As far as what happens to blood cholesterol, weight, waist circumference, you name it, performance, we see generally the same outcomes. So I just think there's so many ways to unpack what we see in this direct poster and in this paper. And then also, how does it kind of reflect or show the opposite of what currently exists? And then what can we really make recommendations based upon this? But I think we've talked about fasting a little bit over the course of episodes over time. So this is a good one to revisit, because there are some people, based on their schedule, based on their preference, that a restricted window might work better, but it's not uniquely beneficial as something that just has a little more of a normally, every 6 to 8 hours or every 4 to 6 hour spacing of meals.
Sure.
Yeah. And along those lines, if you are overweight, obese, dealing with diabetes, and you use intermittent fasting to get a jump start on improving your health, I think that's a great idea. If that works for you, that's great. But overall, you can tell from the podcast, we're not super into fad diets, fad this, fad supplement, even across the board. We're not jumping on the next thing. So is there a chance that doing this long-term could be problematic? There's a chance. This doesn't prove it by any means, but there's a chance. But either way, I think, to go back to the beginning, if you're using it as a jump start, there is good short-term data. But are we ever in favor of massive fad long-term changes like this that you need? And this is the only way you eat is in these short windows. You could just be careful with it. But short-term, if it's something you want to try and it's working for you, I'd say go for it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And there's even another, even like if we just want to keep riding this momentum.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's one reason why intermittent fasting became so popular, or why is it still so frequently talked about? Well, there are implications in terms of like our natural biological rhythms, our diurnal rhythms that if we just look at it in the context of, let's say, insulin sensitivity, that maybe somebody who does have an elevated hemoglobin A1C, or they're pre-diabetic or they're diabetic, that structuring the timing of eating might move the needle for that person more than somebody over here who doesn't have said issues. So there's something to, again, how insulin sensitivity changes throughout the day, let's say, for example, and for somebody who might have blood sugar dysregulation. And then you couple that with the idea of like, what's the alternative here? Well, how long should I space out these meals? Should I be continuously eating, or should I space them out? Should it be 16 hours versus 8 hours? Well, guess what? We know for sure that humans should not really be continuously eating or grazing. We know that's a source of many issues. It's much easier to put on weight that way. It is much more likely to see said blood sugar regulation in those populations. So some level of spacing. It's not that, like, by saying intermittent fasting is useless, that we just throw all chrononutrition or timing around eating out the window. It's just that there's so much more squish in between what can be beneficial, what can be practically used for somebody. And then also just that, just looking at the polar, I think it's helpful to also look at the polar extremes. Continuous eating all the time. If you're on a continuous IV, enteral sort of feeding versus somebody who's being, given food intermittently in the hospital or something, there can be massive differences in how health outcomes turn out, and blood sugar, impetus, and et cetera.
It seems, just applying some logic, that we are designed to eat and then stop eating.
Right.
And then eat and stop eating. And that's kind of the general pattern that should be happening. And that there's, if I hear what you're saying correctly, the gap in there can be different for different people.
Yes.
In different situations. And there are benefits and drawbacks to all of those. Mm-hmm. But at least as far as this paper is concerned, or this poster presentation, drawing some sort of broad-based conclusion that if you don't eat all of your meals at least 12 to 14 hours a day, in there, if you try and squish it down into a smaller amount, then you are going to die of heart disease.
Right.
That's just a massive overstatement.
It's more than a reach.
Yeah. And another angle here too is just the most fundamental level. I know for me, I did kind of a time window thing for a while, and it did help me lose weight.
Yeah.
But I find it hard to believe that the core of the benefit didn't come because I didn't eat ice cream at night. When do you eat ice cream at night? When do you overeat pretzels? When do you overeat chips? It's not typically while you're busy and working, and it's whenever you're kind of relaxed at night during the day. So I cut out so much junk eating not necessarily because of anything intermittent fasting related to the way my body reacted to it. I just ate less junk because I was committed. Because yes, the framing and the context of intermittent fasting gave me a line to draw and that line, what was over that line happened to be the times when I ate worse than when it was inside of the line.
Right.
So some of it is pretty fundamental too, the general concept of it.
Well, like a general rule of I'm going to stop eating at least 2 hours or 3 hours before I go to bed. Mm-hmm. That seems to be something that has worked for me personally I can't, if I start, because once I cross that line, it's hard to stop because I'm just going to keep eating until I go to bed.
Yeah, I know for me personally, it's very much just my mind state. I'm in a more relaxed, my work's done for the day. The kids are in bed, whatever it is, I'm more relaxed.
Access
through the roof too.
Yeah.
All those things kind of come together, And
I've been in the pharmacy. I know that there are sometimes some baked goods in the back.
I eat a little less lunch on those days, but yeah.
Very cool. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that my nonsense meter, when it pinged reading this headline, that it wasn't completely out to lunch. Yeah. Hey, pun intended.
If we didn't get titles like this and headlines like this, what would we be talking
That's
about?
right.
The AHA does a lot of good stuff, of course. So to be clear, they knock it out of the park with a lot of things.
Yep.
It's just that when you hold yourself to that higher of a regard and then you drop some heat like this, you're going to face some backlash, and that's all right.
And you should.
Yeah.
You should.
And if they end up doing some more quality long-term study on this,
I'll eat my shoe. I will eat my shoe 100%. Yeah. Hey, whatever.
In that window. Eat it over a 14 to 16 hours
within that window. Yeah. I'd be curious. There's in the article, it says follow the conference and there's a hashtag. And so I looked it up, and not anywhere, because I got to get a glimpse at these poster presentations.
No one used the hashtag,
but no, people did, but there's not this presentation, the one that this article is based off. There's nothing there, and there's multiple things. Going to present my first time at the AHA conference and all this stuff, and I'm like,
so apparently this was really popular at the conference as well.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder. Yeah.
Interesting.
And again, it's not like the number, it's not like they lied about numbers. It's not like there's nothing, I think, nefarious here, but it's just that it is what it is. The numbers don't lie. It was a 91% increase, but based on what premise? The complete bizarre nonsense, non-rigorous premise.
100% of people who drink water die. So
exactly.
I mean, you might want to consider that before you get that glass next time.
Yep.
Joey, we are going to talk about what is in the bottle. This week, we are talking about Prostate Advanced Essentials, correct?
Yes.
All right. Tell me about Prostate Advanced Essentials.
So Prostate Advanced Essentials is a supplement we recommend for benign prostatic hyperplasia.
That's a lot of words.
From now on, we'll call it BPH.
Okay. All right.
So keyword is benign, so non-cancerous enlargement of the prostate gland, okay, which is a component of the male reproductive system. It's extremely common.
I was going to say, that's a pretty normal thing.
Yes. 50% of men between the ages of 51 and 60 experience it. 70% by the time they're 60, between 60 and 69, and 80% by the time they're 70 or older. Wow. So it's very, very common.
So kind of if you live long enough, this is probably going to happen to you.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
So again, this is not a supplement or a discussion for malignant or cancerous diseases of the prostate. This is about enlargement of the prostate, alleviation of the symptoms.
This is not about cancer.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. So what are those symptoms? Typically dribbling after urination, excessive urination at night, frequent urination, and also a feeling or sense that the bladder is not emptying after urination, leaking, weak stream. They're all those symptoms. Okay. These symptoms occur because the prostate surrounds, and it's not just next to it, surrounds the urethra,
right?
Which is the tube that drains urine from the bladder. And it surrounds it at the top of the urethra, so it's right below the bladder.
Okay.
So that's why men are so sensitive to any enlargement.
Okay. And this enlargement just happens as we age?
As we age, yeah. There are genetic components. There is, and we'll go into a little more, but testosterone converting into dihydrotestosterone. The receptor is very sensitive to it, and that's what causes the enlargement. So it occurs over time. There's a genetic component. It's, a little complicated, but that's one of the major causes of it. So if you're experiencing these symptoms, this is not, oh, my first step is to run out and grab a supplement. Get checked out by your doctor. Make sure, get a PSA level, get a prostate workup to make sure there's not something else more serious going on or something in process along with these symptoms.
And PSA level is just a simple blood test, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Prostate specific antigen. So like the name implies, it's very specific to what will be going on.
Okay. So so first things first, make sure it's not cancer.
Yes, for sure. So there's a deeper dive warranted on prostate health and also the medications. I would like to eventually do that, but today, and again, we're here for the supplement. And again, we're looking for symptom relief. This is not blood pressure, cholesterol. This is symptom relief. You got something going on. Yes, it's a condition, but maybe you're on a medication for it already. Maybe it's just starting and you're going to have that conversation that I recommend you have with your doctor. The medications they'll put you on for it, there's basically two classes. And again, there's another time for a deeper dive, but they do have side effects and they include libido decrease, erectile dysfunction, diarrhea, mastalgia, which is breast pain, because it's the one type, the 5-alpha reductase inhibitors are altering hormones. So the side effect profile, while not necessarily something everybody experiences as typical with medications, it's a significant portion of them. So if you are on one and experiencing this and you know it's just symptoms, I know it's easy for me to say, but it's just symptoms, maybe that is one you can kind of backtrack on and see if there's a supplement option for you. Cool.
All right. So we've established what we're talking about here, prostate enlargement, not cancer, what the symptoms are. What does this supplement do?
So Prostate Advanced Essentials, like a lot of, especially of the newer products that we're moving to, and this is a newer one. It's replacing just the simply named Prostate Essentials. It's very similar, but it's a cleaner product. It allows for one capsule daily dosing. But again, what we're trying to do here is get synergy. So have a multi-ingredient product that's trying to help or support a condition. Okay, not just one, not just the new hot supplement, et cetera. It's a combination of ingredients that we know have been studied. Okay.
Yeah.
The word I come back to in a lot of these and along those lines is the synergy. You have the quick line about synergy. It's the sum is
the sum is greater. Now I forgot it.
Yeah, because I usually say it in a more like roundabout way, and you just like bring me right back in.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yes, there you go. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So any one of these ingredients studied. They help, they work, but when you take them all together, they're working via different mechanisms for a greater overall effect than any one of them individually.
So 2 + 2 isn't 4, 2 + 2 is 10.
Well, yeah. We'll take 5, but 10
sure.
is yes.
That's a lot of synergy.
I like that. That's very synergistic. Exactly.
Okay.
So kind of break it down into 3 parts. There's 3 herbs, 3 herbal extracts, and then there's 3 nutrients that are in there. So we'll start with the herbal extracts, Saw Palmetto, stinging nettles, and pygeum. Okay. So Saw Palmetto is, while again, I'm emphasizing the synergy of the product, Saw Palmetto, I would say, is the main ingredient. Like with a lot of extracts from herbs, you want to make sure it's from the proper part, the part that's been studied, the part that has the effect. This is extract from the fruit of the tree with a focus on extracting the fat soluble, the fatty acid components. That's what actually works. Ours has 320 milligrams of Saw Palmetto, which others may have, but it's been standardized to make sure that 45% of those are the fatty acid components that we know work. So again, that's a critical thing. Is, like we talk about, what's on the label doesn't necessarily, there's 320 of Saw Palmetto in this one, there's 320 in this one. What's the difference?
Yeah, did it come from the bark or a leaf or a root?
You got it. That is a critical part. And I love, the products and the companies we work with make sure to emphasize that. A, to understand it and research it, but B, to emphasize it on the label. So whenever we're discussing them, we see the clear difference.
Okay. So Saw Palmetto.
So, like we touched upon earlier, a major contributor to prostate enlargement is that conversion of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone, DHT.
Yeah.
DHT is what contributes. It is a potent androgen or male hormone. It contributes to that inflammation and enlargement of the prostate. Okay. And it's one of those things that it begins to combine with genetics. That same exposure to some DHT when you're young has different effects than the exposure to DHT as we age. For example, DHT is also linked with hair loss via that same, those genes are not sensitive to it till a certain age, et cetera. So prostate, the same thing is occurring.
Okay.
Yes, it's DHT, but yes, you have DHT when you're 14, 16 years old. It's that conversion that's done can increase as we age, and B, it's the genetic susceptibility to it as we age. So what do we do about it? Saw Palmetto is a mild, well, I'll get the long words out first. Saw Palmetto is a mild 5-alpha reductase inhibitor.
Okay.
So 5-alpha reductase is the enzyme that converts testosterone to DHT. There's an enzyme responsible for it. Saw Palmetto is a mild inhibitor or blocker of that enzyme that conducts that conversion.
Got it.
Finasteride, dutasteride, those are two commonly used medications for BPH. They are very potent synthetic drug versions of 5-alpha reductase inhibitors. So we're looking at the same mechanism. We're looking at a very potent, long-acting one that has side effects, and we're looking at a mild, natural one that has, yes, lower effectiveness, but lower side effect profile.
Right. Cool. So if you don't need the big guns, so to speak.
Exactly. You're not seeing the erectile dysfunction. You're not seeing the decreased libido with Saw Palmetto. It's been studied for a long time. So yes, effectiveness, is less, but that's what we're here for, to kind of fill in that gap if you don't need to go to those big guns.
What does stinging nettle do?
So stinging nettle is a different mechanism. This one's a little murkier, but it's involved in decreasing levels of sex hormone binding globulin, SHBG. So SHBG is a transporter or carrier of hormones. As we age, even though hormone levels are beginning to and progressively decline, SHBG has been shown in males as we age to increase. So you've got more of this transporter. I think it's kind of like looking for it almost, but it kind of does transport and trap the free that's available. That's the body trying to respond to the situation. So there's a hormonal imbalance. So SHBG has been shown to be mildly decreased by stinging nettles.
Okay.
The third one is pygeum bark extract. Again, hitting on the bark extract this time. Yes. So this has a different mechanism, back to the synergistic effect. It's been shown to inhibit growth factors involved in prostate growth, and it supports a healthy inflammatory response in the prostate. They did a study,
which is to reduce inflammation.
Reduce inflammation.
Got it.
Yes. In a study of 85 men were given 50 milligrams, which ours contains, of pygeum. Men had improved urinary flow as measured by urine flow rate. So again, all these have been studied individually. The Saw Palmetto, to go back to that, they did we call meta-analysis, and then we touch on those. It's basically a study of studies.
Yep.
So a meta-analysis of 18 randomized controlled trials that included a total of 3,000 men, found significant benefits, decreasing nighttime urination, increased urine stream. So again, across the board, studies have shown effectiveness.
Okay, great. So those are the three primary components?
Yes. Then those are the herbal section.
Okay.
Those are the main drivers here. Secondarily, though, and what's important to include is 3 minerals. First off is zinc. Zinc also is a mild 5-alpha reductase inhibitor via that same mechanism that we discussed earlier, decreasing the rate of conversion from testosterone to DHT. All right. So as we age, our estrogen levels go up. Men, relative. It's maybe not so much an absolute gain, but it's a relative balance to testosterone. So that has shown to, as that's occurring, decrease zinc absorption in men. So we know zinc has some 5-alpha reductase inhibitory activity, and then with the increased balance on the estrogen side, got decreased absorption of zinc.
Okay.
Copper's in there as well. Copper does not help the prostate directly, but zinc supplementation can cause a decreased absorption of copper in the blood via competitive inhibition. So that's, again, just covering bases on a wide-ranging product. Selenium does not directly improve the symptoms of BPH either, but higher selenium levels in the body have been documented via large meta-analysis studies to be correlated with decreased rates of prostate cancer. So it's a correlation, but we're seeing higher, or I would say proper, good levels of selenium, not these mega doses, not these mega levels.
Right.
Normal selenium levels in the blood correlated with lower prostate cancer risk. Who's at risk for prostate cancer? People who would be on the supplement in the first place.
Everyone with a prostate.
Yeah, yes, but particularly those who are looking at a product like this. So it's in there. Again, it's not going to help with your symptoms, but in the big picture of what's going on with you, it's good to have on board.
Makes sense. All right. Anything else we need to know about this? This is, you said, once a day capsule.
I was just going to say dosing, simple as it gets, one a day. A little bit of food is not a bad idea to help increase absorption of the Saw Palmetto, which has that significant fatty acid component.
Right.
But overall, one a day, nice and easy.
That's easy. Anything else we need to know?
I think so. I think that covers it.
Men need to get their prostates checked, do your PSA.
Yes.
It's a big deal, and it affects almost every single man alive. If you live long enough, it's going to be an issue. Very good. That's it. I love that. Nice and simple. Prostate Advanced Essentials. If you want to find that product, it is on our website, askjoedimatteo.com, askjoedimatteo.com. That is it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions about this episode or anything else health related, email them to us. questions@askjoedimatteo.com. That's questions@askjoedimatteo.com. That site is where you can find all the supplements and products that we recommend, that we sell there, as well as past episodes of this show and the show that started all this, the Ask Joe DiMatteo Show, all there on our website. You can find our blog. There's lots of great stuff there, guys. Check it out, askjoedimatteo.com. Additionally, you can sign up for the email newsletter there. And, show notes. The articles that we referenced, always down available in the show notes section. Read them for yourself. Don't just take our word for it. See what it is we're talking about. Big thanks, as always, to Joey DiMatteo, Dante DiMatteo, Josiah Schweinberg. I'm Tyler Andrews. That's it for us this week, guys. Have a great one.